In today's video, we have a lot of news to talk about. We have a waiver claim by the Montreal Canadiens. We also have a significant injury involving the Montreal Canadiens. We have more signings, a lot more players going through the waiver wire, a New York Rangers trade rumor, and Robin Lehner speaks out hardcore against the NHLPA, the Buffalo Sabres, and the whole Jack Eichel situation. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to talk about here today. We have a variety of things to talk about. Let's start first with the news surrounding the Montreal Canadiens. Unfortunately, newly signed defenseman Sami Niku is going to be out for an indefinite period of time due to suffering a concussion in the preseason game versus the Ottawa Senators. He got a hit from behind from Senators center iceman Josh Norris. There was no penalty on the play. There doesn't appear to be anything supplemental discipline-wise coming either, and he has suffered a concussion and will be out for a period of time. You can never really predict concussions. It's hard to say. It could be days, weeks. It could be longer. It's just you really don't know. Obviously, after leaving Winnipeg, getting signed by Montreal, he had a real opportunity to try to grab a roster spot, and this is likely going to set things back dramatically. So that's very unfortunate news there. We also saw the first waiver claim of the season with the Montreal Canadiens putting in a claim based on the players that were available yesterday. They claimed goaltender Samuel Montembeault, who was formerly with the Florida Panthers and on waivers, available for pickup. So that gives them another goaltender with NHL experience. I wonder if this might have something to do with the fact that Carey Price is still rehabbing an injury. Might he not be ready to start the season? Hard to say exactly, but certainly gives them a third goaltender where Caden Primo can remain playing being the top guy in the American Hockey League system. We'll have to see how this kind of impacts the pecking order. But for right now, he has to stay on the NHL roster here with Montreal. It's hard to say how long he'll be there. They may have to put him on waivers again a little bit later on. So we'll see where things go on that front. The Toronto Maple Leafs have signed young prospect Braden Kressler, who gets his 3-year entry-level contract. And we have a ton of players on waivers yet again. We saw the first players from the Seattle Kraken enter the waiver wire today, which includes a few players that were taken in the expansion draft, as well as some free agent signings. That includes the defenseman Gustav Olofsson. It includes Cale Fleury, who they claimed from the Montreal Canadiens. It includes Connor Carrick, who they signed as a free agent, as well as Antoine Bibeau, who's a goaltender. They also have on waivers today Washington, Dylan McIlrath, who just faced a suspension for a dirty hit in the preseason. Here's on waivers today. Tampa Bay has goalie Maxime Lagacé on waivers. St. Louis Blues has Matthew Pekka. He's bounced around a few NHL teams now with Montreal, Tampa, Ottawa, and others. The LA Kings have Martin Ferk, Garrett Sparks, and Cale Clegg all on waivers as well. We've seen a ton of cuts. I know with LA, for example, they've cut a lot of their top prospects. They're going to be starting in the American Hockey League, such as Alex Turcotte, Kalia, Fagemo, and a few others. So we'll see who ends up sticking with the big club. Jared Anderson-Dolan, another one too, actually, who actually has a bit more NHL experience than most of the other ones, also did not make the cut and will be starting this year in the American Hockey League. So all kinds of player movement when it comes to waivers and cuts right now. We're getting at that point in the NHL season and training camp where teams are starting to trim down their rosters. Over the next probably 1 or 2, maybe 3 days at most, you're really going to see a lot of cuts as NHL teams get down to pretty close to what their NHL roster will look like, probably with the exception of having maybe just a handful of extra players around battling for the last few spots on their roster. So we will see a lot of player movement between waivers and being sent to the minors, back to junior, all that kind of stuff here over the weekend and into the first of the week. And then we'll still see more of it, but it should calm down a little bit after that. Now, before we jump into the rest of the video today, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. And guess what? Hockey fans are buzzing because hockey is back. Want to know what else is buzzing? The Lawnmower 4.0 from our friends at Manscaped, who are the global leaders in male grooming, trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. I highly recommend the Performance Package 4.0, which includes their new state-of-the-art Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some other great features. The lawnmower itself has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction switch that can engage as a travel lock, gives you the ability to turn on an LED spotlight as well for a more precise shave. Also, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions before, Manscaped is about much more than just a trimmer. They have everything, all aspects covered in male grooming, including some great formulations like their brand new ultra premium body wash to keep you smelling great all day long. It's certainly a big hit here. I absolutely love it. They also have other exfoliators and gels to keep all aspects of your grooming needs covered. I highly recommend you check out manscaped.com. Use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code TSH. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. We have some other news to talk about today. First up, I want to take a look at a trade rumor from the New York Rangers, talked about by Larry Brooks in the New York Post, indicating that defenseman Libor Hájek very well could be available for trade and might be on the move sometime ahead of the opening night of the NHL season. He cites a couple of real easy reasons here, meaning that they have a crowded blue line with a lot of young talent, and even though he's been in the system for a few years, he was one of the players that came over in the Ryan McDonagh trade to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They just kind of have a lot of other prospect and younger D who have basically surpassed him on their depth chart. Listening to head coach Gerard Gallant, their top 5 spots in the D rotation are pretty much solidified, with your top pair being Fox and Lindgren, and then you got Miller and Trouba, and then in the 5-6 spots you got Patrick Nemeth, who's on a one-way contract for multi-years, is going to be there, and then they're trying to determine who his partner is going to be, and many feel that youngster Nils Lundqvist is kind of the odds-on favorite for that. They also have Jarrett Tenorti, who could be a decent number 7 defenseman, who can play, maybe not necessarily every day, but he can be in and out of the lineup. He can go to the American Hockey League, but they would need waivers, and that could risk being claimed, but he could certainly be a decent number 7. After that, you have Zach Jones, who's certainly waiver exempt right now. So he's a guy who can go up and down. Get a little bit of action last year, didn't look too bad. They still have Braden Schneider in the mix as well on the way up, Matthew Robertson. So they have 7 other D besides Hájek who can start at the NHL. They still have 2 or 3 other prospects who are projecting to be higher end than Hájek right now, so it makes sense that they might try to find a new home for him before the beginning of the season. There should be lots of other teams who might be interested, because he will need waivers to go to the American Hockey League as well. So obviously they don't want to do that because they would more than likely lose him for nothing. The same goes with some other players. You look around the league, there's a handful of guys that are either pending RFAs or in the final year of their deals, or might have signed 1-year contract as an RFA that would need waivers to go to the minors that you might see finally get moved. Like Kiefer Bellows is another one. Prime example with the Islanders. They will need waivers to put him in the American Hockey League. So will they keep him? Will he stick? Or will they, trade him off to get him a fresh start somewhere else, because he's had a hard time cracking their lineup and getting any kind of real regular sustained opportunity there. So we'll see where that goes. But the Rangers are certainly a team to watch, and there could be several other players, like I mentioned, in that category over the next week or so before the season actually gets underway. Now, the other real, in my opinion, huge news story is Robin Lehner really went off on Twitter today, really calling out the NHL, the NHLPA, and the Buffalo Sabres about how his former teammate for 3 years, Jack Eichel, has been handled in this situation, dealing with his neck injury and everything, and how this trade request has been drug on for several weeks and months now. And I'm going to go over a series of tweets that he posted here on Twitter, really calling things out, and he apparently has more information coming out in the next day or so, I believe, that he's releasing through another podcast and a big interview he did, kind of opening up some more proof to kind of validate some of the things he's testifying to here today. So let's take a look at Robin Lehner's Twitter feed to go through what he had to say here today. Starts by saying, "Where is the NHLPA and all NHL players in this attack on our freedom of choice? Jack's situation is crazy to me. Also, people getting attacked by journalists that hides behind freedom of speech to trash people's freedom of choice. When does the hypocrisy end? Hashtag life after career. So obviously he's not happy with the fact that Eichel cannot have his own freedom of choice to get his own medical surgery and how to handle his own body and to recover so he can continue playing hockey. He also goes on to tweet at the NHL saying, "Is it good to keep a generational player out of the league? His body, his choice. Do what's right, Sabres." Then he goes on afterwards, still doing lots of talking here. Obviously, he goes on to promote and the conversation he had with Renee Paquette, who's going to be dropping an episode on the Volume Sports. I assume that's what he was referring to, which is coming out in the next day or so, where he's going to release more proof about what else he's talking about here today. Goes on to say at NHLPA, "It's disappointing. All I got to say. Same with NHL players not sticking up for each other. Remember, next time is you." Then he goes on to share the article from the doctor who recommended the disc replacement surgery to Jack Eichel, where he comments and says, "Better to have pain for the rest of their lives. At least they'll supply the pain meds. Same old shit." So essentially, the doctors in Buffalo, he's claiming, do not know what's best. And this is certainly something he's going to go on to talk about further. So I'm 100% an NHL fan. Love hockey and want the NHL to be great. I'm not trying to destroy anything, but do what's right. It's time to walk away from the old ways and into the new. Things have to change. I talk way too much and still have 90% of my filter on. Don't make me take it away. Sabres fans, we didn't love each other much. What was warranted against me, some were not. I did my best, but I respect your passion for the franchise. This situation with your captain, who was mine, should be as big of a problem for you as it is for me. I know your hearts are in the right place. Then he goes on to say, this one to me is really big. He says, "They screwed my ankle big time. Then surgery, then pills, no care. Almost died. But hey, after forcing leg presses after a few weeks, after bad high ankle sprain first game, that is foot after treatment. Later is my soul gone after a month after surgery. It's not all pretty," and he posts some pictures. Then he goes on to say, "Enough for today. For every day that goes by and this shit keeps going, I'll be going to release a story and proof for myself, ex-players, and current players on what is going on. Truth tweets start tomorrow unless things get fixed. Have fun." And he copies that at the NHL and the PA. So what exactly is Robin Lehner going to release tomorrow is a big question. Obviously, he's got a lot to say here, and I certainly applaud Robin for his, for speaking out and trying to get this information out here. Now, even though he said he was done for the day, he then later posts another tweet that says, "Is it common for workplaces to give out benzodiazepine to employees when they travel in Ambien? Should that not be done by doctors or psychiatrists? Asking for a friend. This doesn't happen in Vegas, to be clear, but I know many other teams. I also been on other teams that do." And he goes on to comment here as well at the Philadelphia Flyers, saying, "Dinosaur coach treating people robots, not human. Fire these dinosaurs. Fire Vigneault. First story. I got proof. Try to shake your way out of this one." So obviously Robin Lehner is on an absolute mission today, and I don't blame him for being upset for how his former teammate and former captain is being treated here in Buffalo. As I've stated before, I understand how the CBA works. I understand how players' contracts works, but at what point can the player not have their own medical choice to do what they see fit as the best course of action for treatment to get themselves better? To be able to continue playing hockey, to help make money for said franchise that they play for. It's kind of absurd, and I personally agree that the situation with Jack Eichel and how it's been handled, it's an absolute mess. But as Robin Lehner goes on to say, obviously he's got history of the Sabres situation here and how they handle their players with prime example about how he had his own situation. So clearly he speaks from experience and can testify to what's going on. But like he said, it's not just Buffalo. There's other situations around the NHL that need to be dealt with. And he's obviously got some bombshell information that he plans to start tweeting about tomorrow. So I'll be very, very curious to see what exactly he's got to say. And if this is going to change anything with the Eichel situation. Is this going to move the needle for allowing Jack to get the actual surgery he wants? Will Buffalo, do anything about what he's saying? Hard to say, but I certainly would like to tell Robin Lehner, I know he'll probably never see this, but I certainly applaud you for speaking out and trying your best to get this information out there, and I'll be very curious to see where this goes. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again tomorrow once Robin Lehner decides to release more information about what he claims to have here for truth bombs to release at the NHL and what's been going on behind the scenes medically. So stay tuned for that information tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss that. So if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.